Over the years, I've talked to hundreds of CTOs and CIOs about technology needs of multinationals and how we fit ourselves for the future to meet the strategic objectives of the organization, to increase the profit and to allow flexible, dynamic growth. And one of the major issues that's in the minds of people now is cost saving. Of course, in the downturn, that's number one. But also to be green, to be socially responsible, to be environmentally friendly. Are the two compatible? Sure. In fact, saving costs reduces your carbon footprint. Reducing your carbon footprint is very green. Green is good for the business. And you know what? Saving money in this kind of way also generates for other companies all kinds of new exciting business opportunities. Now let's look at what we're talking about. You know, 1 trillion kilowatt hours a year is used just powering the internet. And a big chunk of that is things like web servers. In fact, web servers consume 1% of all global electricity. I'm not just talking about web servers, I'm talking about any kind of servers within the organizations that are channeling traffic internally from one PC to another and connecting the whole grid together. Now, that demand just for web servers actually is growing around 14 to 20% per year. And if we look at that particular challenge, there are huge savings that can be made with more power management software, more efficient power supplies. Google, for instance, has power supplies which are now 90% efficient. Of course, we can change our chipsets or order computers with more efficient chips. We can use better cooling systems. It's astonishing to many people to discover that for every kilowatt of power you spend just generating heat in a server farm, you spend another kilowatt of power perhaps just getting that heat out of the building in just to cool a place down. Heat is a huge hazard in IT, a total wasted product unless you have another way to use it. In my home here, for example, we have a whole load of technology. I'm a futurist, and you know, I was surprised to discover this autumn that there were some weeks when our gas bill was only a third or a quarter of our electricity bill. In other words, a huge amount of the heat that was being generated within the house to keep us warm was actually coming as a side product of all the technology that was being used. Now that's computers, it's routers, it's battery chargers, it's goodness knows what, and it's astonishing how it adds up. Now most IT departments until recently were not confronted with their own energy bills for their own floor within a very large building. Now it's all changing, of course, because buildings management is becoming a #1 area for energy saving. You've got companies like Johnson Controls who are offering to come in to multinational organizations, take a quick look at a tower block, office block, and they think that they can save typically 30 to 40% of energy savings simply by tweaking the heating and air conditioning control systems, installing better heat exchangers and other things. And the first thing that a company like that does is it goes and looks at the room where the IT is kept, and straight away you often find a problem. For a start, you might find that the IT cooling systems are astonishingly inefficient. It may be that the hot air is ducted over 200 meters across the building and out somewhere else and up and down and sideways before it actually gets to the place where it's processed and vented outside. You can find that there are opportunities where that heat could be used in the wintertime and channeled elsewhere into the building instead of just being vented outside. You can find opportunities where the heat can be captured and used to heat homes in the area around that office building, which has this supercharged server center generating this vast amounts of energy. Because the fact is that every kilowatt that is used in IT goes to heat. And we find heat loss just about anywhere around the office. We find it in the PCs, we find it in the equipment that's hidden under the desk, we find it in the stuff that's in the ceiling and in the floor. We find it in the locked cupboards. Anywhere you look, you will find heat being generated by electrical equipment. And so the drive is on with oil that has been up at $165 a barrel, and at the time of this particular video is now down again at around 60, but could well rocket up again to well over 100. There is a real intense interest in making sure that we use every kilowatt wisely. And that concern you can expect to continue. So what can we do? Well, more efficient chipsets, yes, of course. We can use the latest software. We can use energy management systems to make sure that servers that are not fully utilized are closed down and their work is shared by other servers which are kept on at full stream. Virtual servers is an area to watch, where we have operating systems, multiple operating systems and multiple software running on the same machines. It's not been possible up until quite recently to do that, but now it's low cost and, quite frankly, it's a no-brainer. Even small organizations can do this, whether it's virtual backup systems. The smallest business can do this kind of thing using virtual memory storage for using, say, Norton, for example, where the computer goes online, you upload your data and it's stored as a tiny fragment of the entire memory system of one of the huge number of servers in the Semantic HQ. So these are all very obvious, simple things we can do. Virtual servers can save maybe $300 per year per server. And these savings really mount up. And when you add all of these different elements together, we're talking about bottom line, significant improvement in bottom line, and a sense of well-being inside the organization. Remember the wider impact too. You see, while it's true that you can't really tackle the IT issues alone without looking at real estate, infrastructure, the design of the air conditioning systems, the location of the IT, and all kinds of other issues. So we need a multidisciplinary, a multi-business unit a strategy to deal with some of these issues. It is also true that we need to include other departments. And I'm, of course, thinking of marketing, PR, corporate relations and recruitment. Why? Because when you green your IT, when you can boast that you have the most efficient IT in the world, it offers all kinds of other added value to the organization. Look, for example, at McDonald's. McDonald's Hamburgers has decided to put solar cell panels on most of its outlets across America. I cannot think of a more cost-inefficient way to save energy than that, because solar panels are so much more expensive than doing other things that McDonald's can surely do. But what's really interesting is which department is driving it. It's actually marketing. Why is that? Because they think it will do great things to the image of McDonald's to see solar cells on the roofs of every one, maybe, of their outlets. And so we're seeing a shift in business from thinking of energy and environment as things of just cost saving and being caring of resources, to seeing it as mainstream to the business strategy in terms of consumer confidence, brand management and everything else. So we see opportunities as companies go green to increase newspaper coverage, get interesting stories, getting the TV channels in there. Let me give you an example of this. British Sugar decided to go green. Did they do it for environmental reasons or did they do it for bottom line reasons? Who knows? But you know what? It delivered both. And a big brand improvement. British Sugar has a gas turbine which runs off North Sea gas in the UK, and the heat from that gas turbine is captured and used to heat the sugar. Now that's not particularly novel or innovative, but what they do with the gases certainly is. They've connected a huge pipe on the back end of this gas turbine, which looks a bit like a jet engine actually, and this gas is driven at high speed down a pipe which is over 2 kilometers long. At the end of the pipe is one of the largest greenhouses in Europe, covering 22 hectares. That's around 44 acres of land under glass, and inside that glass, 2 tomatoes are growing. They used to be able to grow in those greenhouses 35 million tomatoes a year, which is quite a few. That's almost one for every citizen in the United Kingdom. But with this warm, moist, carbon dioxide enriched gas, those yields have doubled to 70 million tomatoes a year. So here is British Sugar that's now become a big tomato producer, one of the largest tomato producers in the world. Is it a green thing? Yes. Does it save energy? Sure, because it heats the greenhouse. Does it improve their brand? It certainly does. So it was a win-win-win-win-win. Now those kind of innovations happen when business units cooperate together, when it's no longer just the head of IT talking about his electricity bill with the head of the real estate and the infrastructure team that's responsible for that building. It's no longer just the marketing people talking about how to improve the image of the company with the director of corporate affairs. No, what we need is joined-up strategy, which will enable us to see how, when we green IT, we're improving the entire corporation. And you can go a step beyond, because when you start to see improvements in the corporate branding, which you can put a value on, improvements in media coverage, which again you can put a value on, improvements in staff morale because the staff feel that this is a progressive, dynamic, environmentally conscious organisation that they're proud to work with, improvements in staff recruitment, which again you can put a price on, reductions in staff turnover, again you can put a price on. You can measure these things. Then you start to put a whole package together which can look really exciting and can give you extra budget to go a little bit further. For example, the ultimate green IT would be not only to reduce your carbon footprint, maybe by 20-25%, using measures which pay for themselves hands down in 2 or 3 years' time, and after that it's pure payback, but also improve the image dramatically in other ways. So one example of that would be HSBC. HSBC is a corporation which relies hugely on technology. After all, it's a bank. What are banks? They're simply organizations that trade bits and bytes and put value on them. Yes, I know they have shop fronts and retail outlets, and they have private bankers and investment bankers and all the rest, but they are huge consumers of IT and IT-related energy. HSBC decided not only to green its IT by reducing its carbon footprint and reducing its energy bill, which, as I say, is stuff which is a no-brainer, it pays for itself quite quickly, but they decided to go further. And when they had found their basic minimum of energy use per year, and they loaded into that the energy that's used in flying around the world to meetings, the energy used printing paper and making the paper to go in the printers, the energy used to heat and light their facilities, the energy used to purchase and run the mobile phones they use, and so on. They worked out their entire carbon footprint, and then, having, as I say, reduced what they could, they offset a lot. So HSBC has become the world's first carbon-neutral bank. Now, offsetting is a little bit controversial because people can't agree on how the offsetting process should work and whether it's and what the ethics of these different schemes are. But broadly speaking, the principle is simple. HSBC goes into the market and, guided by environmental consultants, chooses a scheme somewhere else in the world where a small amount of money can produce a huge reduction in that particular community's use of carbon. And by doing that, they secure for themselves a carbon credit which they can use to offset the rest of the carbon in their business. And how do they justify that additional cost? Well, for a start, it turns out to be astonishingly small. And secondly, of course, it improves the brand. As I say, it improves the image. It does something for customer loyalty. It positions them well in the marketplace for employment and so on. So these are soft issues that come out of a hard one, which is just reduce your energy cost. Show me how you can do it. So summary then, how green is your IT? Probably not green enough. Are there things we can do? Yes. Let's start with energy. It will pay for itself. But at the same time, let's also do a whole stack of other things that cost almost nothing. Things like making sure that our computers are properly recycled, that we recycle print cartridges and other things, that we reduce the amount of paper that we use, and so on and so on. And together, we will build a better kind of future. Not only for the business shareholders, but also for our customers. Not only for our customers, but also for the staff and the teams that work in our organizations, for the whole of humanity. And that's a great thing to do.